Wait, Ed, where are you going?
I'm done waiting.
I think I didn't do anything wrong, just left a grown man to sort himself out. He was slowing me down, literally and emotionally. But when the papers came, intent to file for separation and financial division, I realized regret travels faster than guilt. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Saturday mornings were supposed to be peaceful in our house. Sunlight through the blinds, coffee brewing, the sound of cartoons from the living room. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through my phone while Ethan fussed over the toaster like it was a science project. He asked if I wanted eggs or just toast, and I said I wasn't hungry. He said I'd been skipping breakfast too often. I told him maybe if he made something worth eating, I'd bother. He went quiet after that, which was typical. Ethan's specialty was silence. I used to think that made him strong, but lately it just felt weak. He'd let me say whatever I wanted without reacting, like a man allergic to confrontation. People said I was lucky to have a husband who didn't argue. They didn't understand how infuriating it was to live with someone who'd rather swallow hurt than raise his voice. That afternoon, we had lunch with my parents. My mother, Renee, never hid her opinions. She said Ethan was steady and that steady men make life easy. I smiled politely while thinking easy meant boring. My father asked if Ethan had fixed the bathroom leak yet. Ethan said he was getting to it. My father nodded approvingly. I rolled my eyes. Later, Ethan's parents came by with our son, Sam, who had stayed the night with them. His mother, Margaret, barely looked at me. I knew she never thought I was good enough for her precious boy. She said I should be proud. Ethan had been promoted again. I laughed and said promotions don't make people interesting. The silence afterward stretched long enough to hear the clock ticking. When everyone finally left, Ethan said quietly that I'd embarrassed him. I said he was too sensitive, that jokes keep things light. He said they didn't feel like jokes. I told him if he can't take a little teasing, that's not my fault. He nodded, cleaning up plates while I scrolled through messages. That was when I saw it, Derek's name on my screen after years of nothing. Still driving that old sedan, the message said. I smiled before I could stop myself. Ethan looked up from the sink and asked what was so funny. I said, just someone who still knows how to make me laugh. Derek's message sat in my inbox for a full day before I replied. I told myself it was harmless, just catching up with an old friend. He said he'd seen my profile picture and barely recognized me, that I looked even better than college. I told him marriage and motherhood hadn't killed me yet. He said it must be because my husband knew what he had. I didn't correct him. That week, I told Ethan I wanted to start going to the gym again. He smiled, said it was a great idea, even offered to come with me. I told him it was my me time, and he shouldn't worry. The next evening, I drove straight to Derek's gym across town. Seeing him again made something in me wake up, the part that missed being seen, being wanted. He hugged me a little too long, said I hadn't changed. I laughed and said he had, though not in a bad way. He smelled like ambition and expensive cologne, things Ethan had forgotten about years ago. Over the next few weeks, I started dressing up more. Tighter clothes, brighter lipstick. Ethan noticed. He asked if there was a new client I was trying to impress. I said I just wanted to feel good about myself, which was true in its own way. He said he was proud of me for taking care of myself. I told him he should try it sometime. When he asked about my late nights, I said I was meeting people for marketing consultations. He said he didn't mind as long as I was careful. I rolled my eyes, told him not to act like my father. He went quiet again. That silence made me feel powerful. At my mother's, I mentioned Ethan's insecurities. She laughed, said men get paranoid when women glow up. Janice, my sister, looked uncomfortable and asked if I was sure I wasn't leading Ethan on. I told her to stay out of grown-up conversations. One night, Derek invited me for drinks after the gym. He said he missed talking to me. I said maybe we shouldn't. He said maybe we already were. When I got home late, Ethan was waiting on the couch. He asked where I'd been. I said, networking. He said he believed me. I smiled and went to shower, deleting Derek's message before the water turned hot. The trip started as Ethan's idea. He said we hadn't spent a weekend together in months and suggested driving me to my client retreat in the city. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he said it would be nice to talk on the way. I didn't want him there, but saying no too firmly might have raised questions. So I smiled, packed my things, and let him take the driver's seat. He drove the same way he did everything. Careful, measured, painfully slow. Every few miles he asked if I was comfortable, if the air was too cold, if I wanted to stop for coffee. I said I was fine, but inside I was seething. My phone kept buzzing with messages from Derek, asking when I'd arrive. I kept my replies short, hiding the screen against my thigh. Ethan noticed, of course. He asked if it was a client. I said yes. He said it seemed like we talked a lot for work. I told him I didn't need a chaperone for my career. He went quiet again, the way he always did when I pushed. After an hour of silence, he started talking about Sam, how he wanted to take him fishing when the weather warmed up. I nodded but didn't really listen. I was thinking about how Derek said he'd booked us a table at a rooftop restaurant, how it would feel to walk in looking like someone whose life was exciting again. When we stopped for gas, Ethan insisted on checking the tires. I sat scrolling through my phone, irritated that he was wasting time. Derek texted, "Almost there, can't wait to see you." I felt my pulse quicken. I typed back a heart and then deleted it, typing "me too." We were back on the highway when the car made a soft, awful sound, like something sighing. Ethan muttered that he'd heard that noise earlier. I said maybe if he drove a car made this decade, we wouldn't have problems. He pulled onto the shoulder, popped the hood, and told me it was probably a loose belt. I told him to call roadside service and stop pretending he could fix everything himself. He said he had it under control. I said that's what he always said right before something fell apart. He looked at me then, tired eyes, grease on his hands, and asked if I'd rather he stopped trying altogether. I told him maybe that would be an improvement. My phone buzzed again. "Derek, still coming?" I grabbed my purse and stepped out of the car. Ethan called after me, asked where I was going. I said I'd find a ride. He said we could wait together. I told him he'd already made me wait long enough. Then I started walking toward the gas station a mile ahead, heels clicking against the asphalt. Behind me, I heard him call my name once more, quieter this time. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, telling myself he'd thank me one day for forcing him to finally stand on his own. Derek pulled up 10 minutes after I reached the gas station. He leaned out of his car window and grinned like we were sneaking out of class. I laughed, partly from nerves, partly from the thrill of being rescued. He said Ethan would be fine, that men like him always managed somehow. I said Ethan had been managing too long, and maybe this was the wake-up call he needed. We drove toward the city with music playing loud, the wind in my hair, and a guilt that felt small enough to ignore. At the hotel, Derek carried my bag and asked if I wanted to get dinner first or check in. I said dinner. The restaurant was busy, the lights low, and for a while, I pretended we were back in college. No ring on my finger, no child waiting at home, no husband stranded by the road. Derek talked about his business, his ex-wife, his gym expansion. He said he couldn't believe I'd settled down so young. I said it wasn't settling, it was surviving. He laughed and said I hadn't changed. When my phone buzzed, I saw Ethan's name and ignored it. Another message came, then another. Finally, I opened one. He said he'd fixed the car and was heading back home. He asked if I was safe. I stared at the screen and typed, "Don't wait up." Derek glanced at me, asked if everything was okay. I said it was just work stuff. He nodded, clearly uninterested. Later that night, I took a photo of my meal and posted it on social media with the caption, Freedom tastes better with wine. Within an hour, there were likes from friends, a heart from my mother, and one comment from a mutual acquaintance. "Where's Ethan?" I ignored it. The next morning, my sister Janice called. She said Ethan had shown up at my parents' house with Sam, that he looked pale but calm. She asked what had happened. I told her not to make it dramatic. She said everyone was talking, that Margaret had called her crying. I said Margaret always cried. When I finally returned home 2 days later, the driveway looked emptier. Ethan's car was gone, his shoes from the entryway too. The living room felt stripped, half the shelves bare. On the kitchen table sat a single envelope with my name. Inside, a short note in Ethan's handwriting. "I've spoken with Hannah. Please direct any communication through her. I'll collect the rest of my things later." For a moment I just stood there, reading it again and again. My first thought wasn't sorrow, it was disbelief. How dare he leave without a fight? He was supposed to chase me, beg, make a scene. Instead, he'd simply removed himself from the story. The sound of silence filled the house, heavier than any argument we'd ever had. The next week blurred into a mess of phone calls and unanswered texts. I called Ethan twice, left long messages about how we needed to talk. He never called back. When I tried a third time, the line went straight to voicemail. Then a number I didn't recognize rang. A woman's voice introduced herself as Hannah Vale, Ethan's sister. She said she was calling on his behalf. I laughed, asked if he was hiding behind his lawyer now. She said calmly that she was his lawyer. My stomach dropped. Hannah said Ethan had filed for separation and temporary custody of Sam. She asked if I preferred to discuss matters through my own representation. I said she must be joking. She said she'd email the documents anyway. The call ended before I could speak again. I opened my laptop and there it was, an official notice with my full name. Words like marital misconduct and intentional abandonment leapt off the page. I told myself it couldn't be real, that Ethan was bluffing to scare me. I called my mother. She gasped, then said he couldn't do this to me. I told her I'd fix it. She said I should post something happy online, show people we were fine. So I did. A smiling photo of me with Sam from last month, captioned, "Family always finds its way." Within hours, Margaret commented, "Not this time, dear." I deleted it, but screenshots spread fast. 2 days later, Hannah showed up at my door with a folder. She said she wanted to handle it professionally. I told her she was overstepping. She said, "Not as a sister, as counsel." Inside the folder were photos. Me and Derek at a hotel, time-stamped the same night I left Ethan on the highway. My throat went dry. I asked where she got them. She said from security footage Ethan's friend had access to. I told her the pictures didn't prove anything. She said they proved enough. She handed me another document, joint account statements showing transfers I'd made to Derek's gym. She said those would count as gifts to a romantic partner in court. I told her she was cruel. She said I'd made her brother cruel by necessity. That night, I sat on the couch scrolling through old texts from Derek. His messages had changed tone, shorter, colder. When I called, it went to voicemail. I sent him one last text. "I think he's serious this time." No reply. My mother said Ethan was bluffing, but my sister Janice said she'd heard he'd already moved into a small apartment and enrolled Sam in a new school. She asked if I had a plan. I said yes, though I didn't. The next morning, an official letter arrived. Notice of hearing, financial partition, and a custody request excluding me until further behavioral review. I held it in my hand so long the paper crumpled. For the first time, I realized Ethan wasn't bluffing at all. The courthouse felt colder than I expected, the kind of cold that comes from clean floors and people who already know how your story ends. I wore a pale blue blouse, something soft to make me look harmless. My mother came with me, whispering that no judge would separate a child from his mother. I wanted to believe her. Ethan sat on the other side of the room, straight-backed, calm. He didn't glance at me once. Hannah stood beside him, her files perfectly organized, her voice steady when she greeted the judge. I'd imagined this moment so many times, thinking I'd find some way to twist it back in my favor. But when it actually started, my mind went blank. The judge asked why I had left my husband on the roadside. I said it wasn't abandonment, it was temporary frustration. Hannah spoke next, describing my willful desertion, the public humiliation, the online posts, the photos from the hotel. I shook my head, said she was exaggerating. The judge asked if I denied being at that hotel. I said yes. Then she read Derek's written statement. He'd confirmed everything, saying I needed space, and that I'd told him my marriage was over. My mother gasped beside me. I wanted to run, to scream that none of it mattered, that Ethan was still the man who loved me once. But every word I thought of sounded like an excuse. When it was my turn to speak, I said I was lonely, that Ethan had made me feel invisible, that I just wanted to feel alive again. The judge said loneliness was not a legal defense for deceit. Ethan finally spoke then, voice calm but firm. He said he didn't hate me, that he only wanted stability for our son. He said he'd done everything to make the marriage work, but I'd turned him into someone he didn't recognize. He thanked the court for giving him the chance to start again. Hearing him thank them felt like the final cut. When the ruling came, it was short and merciless. Ethan awarded primary custody, financial separation approved, my visitation rights suspended pending evaluation. The gavel sounded like a door closing. My mother started to cry. I didn't. I just stared at the table, hands folded, as if still waiting for my turn to explain. Outside, reporters asked for comments. I kept walking. Hannah brushed past without a glance. Ethan followed a few steps behind her, holding Sam's backpack in one hand. Sam looked back once, uncertain, then turned away when Ethan spoke softly to him. I stood at the courthouse steps, watching their car pull away, my reflection caught in the glass doors behind me. Small, nervous, unimportant. For years I'd told myself Ethan was slow, cautious, pathetic. But he'd been the one who knew where the road ended, and I was still standing on it, waiting for a ride that would never come. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.